Right now, the incoming leader of the United States Senate, Republican Senator John Thune from South Dakota. Haven't talked to you, Senator, since you won election as the majority leader. Congratulations. I'm not sure you'll be happy that you won in a year. This is going to be a rough year.
Yeah, that's not going to be easy, Hugh. We know that, but thank you. We're looking forward to it. You know, you don't get this opportunity very often, and sometimes it doesn't stay around for very long. We got a 2-year window here to get a lot of things done, and we intend to make good use of it.
Before we go to talk about reconciliation or anything like the AM radio bill, I want you to reflect on what it means to lose in politics but stick with it. Because a lot of people lost close elections, and they might want to leave. That happened to you, but you stayed with it. And I want to go back that you're the majority leader of the Senate now because you stuck with it, and I want other people to hear that.
Well, I talked to, and as you know, this time around, too, we had a number of our candidates, who lost very narrowly, almost got across the finish line. I've talked to all of them just to encourage them to keep the door open and keep looking for other opportunities to plug in and to serve because, I think sometimes, particularly when you have a tough loss, it's a real gut punch, but you can bounce back. And I hope some of these folks do because there were some really quality candidates out there this time. And we're grateful for those who made it across the finish line, got us a 53-seat majority. But there were, several of them, as you know, out there who were just really, really high-quality candidates, and I hope they take another look at it.
I do, too. And we got to also defend Susan Collins in Maine, Tom Tillis in North Carolina. A bunch of Republicans are up this time. That'll be Tim Scott, not Steve Daines' problem. But first, we got to save my business. Yeah, I want to lobby you, Senator. AM radio bill needs to be in the final CR, and then we need these tax cuts early so I can know what CapEx to do in January and February, not in July and August or maybe after we've lost the House majority. What's going to happen with reconciliation?
Well, first off, let me say there are a whole bunch of items, starting with securing the border, modernizing the military, unleashing American energy, and then, of course, extending the Trump tax cuts. They're all part of President Trump's agenda. And what I've suggested is a route to get, secure a big early win that advances the president's agenda and that is crucial for national security. My understanding is that President Trump is going to enact several executive orders regarding the border on his first day in office, and those executive orders are going to need to be funded in order to have teeth and to be effective, which is why I believe we ought to move on that part of the agenda right away. But let me just tell you, because I know you and a lot of other people are going to be really concerned about, certainty with regard to the tax code. To me, there's no way that we can fail on that. Failure is not an option as far as tax is concerned. But what I would tell you, just from a timing standpoint, having been through this a few times and been involved with tax policy for a long time, it's going to take a while to put that big package together because there are so many moving parts. There's a bunch of new ideas that President Trump's put out there. There are questions about which baseline to use, whether or not they ought to be made permanent, whether or not parts of it needs to be offset. And I think it's going to take a while. Plus, there are other pieces of it that we would like to include in there. There may be some things on spending cuts that DOJ comes up with that we're probably not going to get done with this until my goal is to have this done by summer. But I think that happens either way. If you do it in one piece or two pieces, I think that big tax piece is just going to take a while. So I think get some wins early, deal with the border, deal with defense, deal with some energy policy, and these other pieces that are going to be fairly complicated. Don't rush them. Make sure we get it right, and that shouldn't get those negotiations shouldn't get in the way of President Trump's efforts to secure the border. That'd be my view and my argument. But I hear what you're saying.
Now, I'm curious, Senator, because I understand what you're saying as well. There are some very difficult choices to be made. You've been on finance a long time. I don't know the tax code. I barely made it through tax when I was a law student. I have accountants for that. But I got to know if the pass-through is going to stick around, and I can't depend upon a promise from the House because the House majority is so little. Why not take that on which all Republicans agree? And because you're absolutely right on the border and the defense buildup, it's got to be in the first reconciliation. But can't we get things like the pass-through and the basic rate structure added into the first reconciliation and then worry about the complicated stuff in the second?
Well, and we've given some consideration to pieces that we might be able to include early on. And again, I think that, and by the way, the House majority, which is incredibly narrow, as you point out, does get better after those special elections. I mean, we're going to pick up those 3 House seats that right now are empty and give us a 217, 250. And I mean, the Speaker will have a 220, 215 majority in the first quarter, after the first quarter next year, when some of those special elections get out of the way. So it gives them a little bit of a margin, not a lot, but I think the pass-through deduction was the thing that we fought for, and that was the area of the code that I worked with in 2017. And just to make sure that we got parity with C Corp. C Corp's got the big rate reduction from 28 to 21. And in order to make sure that pass-through businesses, which are in my state at least about 99% of businesses, also got an equal type benefit, we created that pass-through deduction, and we need to make sure it stays there. And so that's going to be a huge priority of mine. And again, I don't know that if we try to do pieces of this early on, I think they're all going to have to ride together. The tax code has so many moving parts; it's all complicated. If we did that piece early on, my guess is it makes it even more complicated to get the rest of it later, because there are a lot of give and takes and trade-offs that occur in these fights. And I don't think it's going to be, honestly, I don't think it's going to be any easier for the House to do this earlier than it is going to be do it later, just simply because they're going to have more votes later on, and I think it's going to take us a while to piece this together.
Well, the reality is, though, Donald Trump arrives with Thor's hammer. And if anyone gets out of line on the first budget resolution before January, he can line up a primary opponent in the House in about 2 seconds. That's the only, I mean, we could actually lose the majority, Senator. That's why I am so adamant. And the guys who are listening in the studio right now, they're listening very closely, because bonuses and CapEx depend upon the pass-through, right? And there are people all over the country leaning in right now. John Thune knows the pass-through. What's he going to say? And they're not going to be happy to hear, well, wait until summer.
Well, but the thing is, the pass-through, of course, as you know, doesn't expire until the end of this year. And just drawing on the 2017 experience, we didn't get to the tax piece of reconciliation. We did the Obamacare repeal in the summer of that year. We didn't get in the tax piece until the fall of 2017. But none of this is all, the pass-through is there. I mean, the 199A deduction is there through this entire next year. And the deadline we have in front of us is December 31 of 2025. And I think that deadline works to our advantage, because nobody wants to see a $4 trillion tax increase. And I can't imagine any Republican in the House or the Senate who is going to vote to allow that to happen. So I think we have the pressure of the expiration next year working to our advantage, creating a deadline out there to ensure that it gets done. And like I said, as far as I'm concerned, failure is not an option. It's just something that we can't rush. We need to get it right. And I think there are things that we can do in a second reconciliation package on the spending side that we need to do too. And I'm hoping by then some of the DOGE work will be done, and we'll have a better understanding of what we might be able to do to actually do some things to significantly shave the cost of government, in addition to extending the tax policy.
Senator, the risk is just so high. Because Democrats don't share our vision on low tax free enterprise. And if we lose the House majority or it goes sideways on it, my argument, I'm going to leave it alone. I want to move back to the AM bill. And why are there House Republicans opposed to saving AM radio? I don't get that. This should be in the CR like yesterday.
Yeah, and as you know, I think we passed it, with a big margin out of the Senate Commerce Committee a long time ago. I don't understand that either. And it seems like something that could ride on a year-end bill that's broadly supported in a bipartisan way. But the folks who are negotiating this, you have to have everybody. Got to have the so-called four corners, leaders in the House, Senate, Republican and Democrat, all on board to get it included in there. I'll run the traps on that and see what I find out. I'm not at the table on this quite yet. But I, like you, want to see that get done.
Well, let me congratulate you and Leader McConnell on one more thing. Chuck Schumer walked out in a barrel on the negotiation over judges. You gave him 12 district court judges. You kept back 5 appeals court judges for the Republican majority. So congratulations on that, Senator. That was shrewd. I don't know who gets the credit for that, but poor Chuck Schumer. I feel bad for him sometime negotiating with you and McConnell.
Well, thanks, Hugh. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride in the years, in the weeks and months ahead. But yeah, we have a ton of stuff that we need to get done, and that's why we need the reconciliation vehicle. It's why we need the majorities in the House and the second, and in the Senate. We've got 2 years to do this. So, but only a year to do the tax stuff, as you remind me.
Yeah, only a month. I'm going to keep arguing with you, Senator, but thank you for joining me. And when we move to the afternoons, I hope you'll be here more often. We're going to the afternoons on January 13th from 3 to 6 in the afternoon so we can drive the senators home instead of driving them to work. John Thune from the great state of South Dakota, thank you